December 20th, 1968, Northern California. A two-lane road called Lake Herman Road outside a small town called Benicia. Friday night. Cold. Dark. The kind of road where nothing ever happens. Two teenagers parked near a gate at the end of the road. David Faraday, 17. Betty Lou Jensen, 16. One of their first dates. Earlier that evening, they had been to a Christmas concert at school. Now they were parked in the dark the way teenagers do. Talking, radio on, windows fogging up. They weren't doing anything wrong. They weren't bothering anyone. They were just there. A car pulled up behind them. A man got out. He didn't speak. He didn't hesitate. One shot to David's head. Betty Lou ran. She made it 28 feet from the car. 5 bullets stopped her. When police arrived, they found shell casings, a tire track, and a single boot print in the mud near the shoulder of the road. Size 10.5. No witnesses, no motive, nothing. 2 kids went to a Christmas concert and never came home. That was the beginning. He went quiet for 7 months. Police worked the case. Families buried their dead. Life moved on. Then came the 4th of July, July 4th, 1969. Independence Day, fireworks over the bay, people celebrating in the streets, and a man drove to a parking lot near Blue Rock Springs Park in Vallejo, about 15 miles from where he had killed the first time. 2 people were parked there. Darlene Ferrin, 22, and Michael Majot, 19. The man pulled up alongside them and sat there watching, then drove away. They relaxed. He came back 12 minutes later. He walked up to the car with a flashlight. They thought it was a cop. He raised a gun and fired multiple times through the window. Darlene was hit several times. She died before the ambulance arrived. Michael was shot in the face, the neck, and the chest. He survived. From a hospital bed with a wired jaw, he described the attacker. Heavyset, round face, short brown hair, about 5'8", an ordinary face, the face of a man you'd pass at the grocery store and not remember 10. 3 weeks after the 4th of July attack, 3 envelopes arrived at 3 different newspapers. San Francisco Chronicle, San Francisco Examiner, Vallejo Times-Herald. Inside each, a letter with details of both attacks, details only the killer could know, and inside each, 1/3 of a 408-symbol coded message. Together, he wrote, the 3 pieces contained his identity. He demanded the papers print the ciphers on their front pages, or he would go on a killing spree over the weekend. He signed each letter with a crossed circle, a symbol that looked like a gun sight. He gave himself a name, the Zodiac. The editors debated. The police were divided. The papers printed the ciphers anyway. Banner headlines, front page, just like he asked. And with that, a killer had his audience, his name in every home in California. His words read over breakfast tables across the state. This is the part the headlines don't explain. He didn't write to confess. He didn't write because he felt guilty. He wrote because he liked it. Because somewhere in San Francisco, or Vallejo, or wherever he was that morning, he was reading his own name in the paper and enjoying every word. The FBI couldn't crack the code. Professional cryptographers couldn't crack it. It was solved in 72 hours by a high school teacher from Salinas named Donald Hardin and his wife Betty, sitting at their kitchen table. Pencil and paper. No computers, no agency resources. Just 2 ordinary people who sat down and worked it out. What they found inside was not a name. The Zodiac wrote that he killed because it was, his words, so much fun. More fun than killing wild game in the forest. He wrote that his victims would become his slaves in the afterlife, that he was collecting souls for the paradise waiting for him. He wasn't confessing. He was bragging. The second cipher was 340 symbols long. It sat unsolved for 51 years. Investigators tried, academics tried, amateur codebreakers tried. In December 2020, a team of 3 volunteers from the United States, Australia, and Belgium finally cracked it. They had been working on it for years using computer analysis and pattern recognition. What did they find inside after 51 years? More taunting, more darkness, still no name. The Zodiac had written that he hoped investigators were having lots of fun trying to catch him. He was right about one thing. They weren't.
September 27th, 1969. Lake Berryessa. A large man-made lake north of Napa. Beautiful place. Green hills, calm water, families picnicking on weekends. 2 college students, friends who had once dated, came to spend a Saturday afternoon on the shore. They spread a blanket and lay in the sun. Then one of them noticed a man standing in the shadow of the trees about 100 yards away. Just standing there, watching. He stepped out and walked toward them. He was wearing a black hood that came down over his shoulders. On the front, a white crossed circle stitched into the fabric, his own symbol. He was carrying a gun and a length of plastic clothesline. He told them a story, that he was an escaped convict who needed money and a car to get to Mexico. He seemed calm, almost polite. The young man offered his wallet and his keys. The stranger didn't take them. He tied them both up instead, then said, "I'm going to have to stab you." The young man said something that stayed in the case files forever. He said, "Stab me first. I can't watch her go first." So he did. The young man survived 6 stab wounds. The young woman survived the attack, but died in hospital 2 days later. Before he walked away, the Zodiac stopped at the car, took out a black marker, and wrote the dates of his previous attacks on the door, like a list, like a record he was proud of. Then he got in his car and drove to a phone booth and called the police himself to report what he'd done. October 11th, 1969, San Francisco. A cab driver named Paul Stein was working the night shift, 29 years old, graduate student at San Francisco State, driving a cab to pay his tuition. He picked up a fare at Union Square, a quiet man who asked to be taken to Washington and Maple and Presidio Heights. The cab stopped 1 block past the destination, 1 shot to the back of the head. The Zodiac reached over the front seat and took Paul's wallet. Then he cut a piece from Paul's shirt, not to keep, to send, as proof of what he'd done. 3 young people saw him from a window above the street and called police immediately. They described him clearly. White male, heavy-set, brown hair, glasses, dark jacket. Due to a miscommunication, the wrong description went out over the radio. 2 officers responding to the scene passed a man on foot 2 blocks away. He matched the description the witnesses had given. The officer stopped him briefly, decided he couldn't be the suspect based on the wrong broadcast description, and let him walk. He was never that close to being caught again. Paul Stein was 29 years old. He had been saving up to finish his degree. He was the last confirmed victim of the Zodiac killer. After Paul Stein's murder, the Zodiac stopped killing, or at least stopped being confirmed to have killed, but the letters kept coming. Over the next 5 years, more than 20 letters arrived at newspapers, at a lawyer's office, once directly to the homicide detective running the case. He taunted the police. He counted victims, claimed 37 total, a number investigators could never verify and largely believe was inflated. He threatened to shoot out the tires of a school bus and shoot the children as they ran. He sent pieces of Paul Stein's shirt as proof. He included a diagram for a bomb designed to be triggered by the headlights of a school bus. He complained in one letter that the police were telling lies about him, as if that was the injustice in the situation. In another letter, he announced he would change his method, make murders look like accidents and robberies, so they wouldn't be connected to him. He was thinking clearly, strategically. He was not a man out of control. He was a man who enjoyed control. And somewhere between the letters and the threats and the ciphers, he was living an ordinary life, going to work, watching the news, reading about himself in the paper. The last letter confirmed to be from the Zodiac arrived in 1974. After that, nothing. No more letters, no more attacks, just silence. Over the decades, investigators looked at more than 2,500 suspects. One name kept coming back, a man from Vallejo, a schoolteacher. Before the killings began, he had told people around him that he dreamed of hunting human beings. He owned a Zodiac brand watch. He matched the physical descriptions given by survivors. Handwriting analysis showed similarities with the Zodiac letters. He was investigated 3 separate times. His home was searched. His car was searched. Items found during the searches raised questions that were never fully answered. He was never charged. He died in 1992 of natural causes. DNA testing done in the late 90s excluded him as the source of DNA found on the envelopes. But the DNA sample was small and degraded, and investigators were never fully satisfied either way. In 2021, a separate group of investigators named a different man, a house painter who had died in 2018. Witnesses claimed he had admitted to the murders. He had scars on his forehead that matched descriptions. Law enforcement reviewed the evidence and rejected the claim. The FBI investigation remains open. No one has ever been charged. No one has ever been convicted. 2 men named as suspects died without ever being proven guilty or innocent. The truth went with them. Dave Toschi was the lead detective on the Zodiac case for the San Francisco Police Department. He was put on the case after Paul Stine's murder in October 1969. Sharpdresser, known around the department for his bow tie and his upside-down shoulder holster. Steve McQueen reportedly modeled his character in Bullet on Toschi. Clint Eastwood's Dirty Harry was partly inspired by him. He was the best-known detective in San Francisco, and the Zodiac case ate him alive. He had 8 filing cabinets full of potential suspects. He questioned hundreds of witnesses. He followed thousands of leads over years. Every day he came in and worked the case. In 1976, he told a reporter, "I never let a day go by without remembering Zodiac." He said it gave him an ulcer. In 1978, 9 years into the investigation, Toschi was removed from the case, not because of anything the Zodiac did, because it was discovered that Toschi had been anonymously writing letters to the Chronicle praising his own work on the investigation. He called it an ill-advised indulgence. He was transferred out of homicide. He retired in 1985. For years after retirement, he still drove to the site of Paul Stine's murder on the anniversary of the killing to walk the street and look for something he might have missed. The Zodiac case gnawed at him until the end. Dave Toschi died in 2018. He was 86 years old. The case was still open. The Zodiac killer case remains officially open. 5 confirmed victims. A killer who wrote letters for years and then simply stopped. A detective who spent his career on the case and died without an answer. Ciphers that took 50 years to crack and still gave up no name. 2,500 suspects and not one conviction. At some point in the mid-1970s, the Zodiac went quiet. He either died, or went to prison for something unrelated, or moved away, or simply stopped and went back to whatever ordinary life he had been living the whole time. Mowing his lawn, watching the game on Sunday, reading the paper in the morning. The case gnawed at every person who worked it. Investigators, journalists, amateur codebreakers, families of victims. All of them pulling at the same thread for 50 years and finding it leads nowhere. That's what makes this case different from most. It's not just unsolved, it's unfinished. Somewhere between 1968 and today, a man killed at least 5 people, wrote letters to taunt the entire state of California, and then walked away clean. We never learned his name. We never saw his face. We probably never will. This has been The Dark Stories. Sleep well.